Hello and welcome to another episode of Talk Power BI. Let's make sure, if you are watching the replay, hello and welcome. This is going to be the top hits, so a little bit of a special start here. If you're joining just now, let me know that the audio works. That's always important. And say hi. So let's see how things are working, my friends. How's everybody doing? Come on. So if you're live and if you're on, let me know that the audio works. I am monitoring it on my side, but it just takes a little bit of time. Oh boy. So my son is on. Bart Waiter, that's not his real last name. What are you doing? You're supposed to be in school. But so is my mom. No, just kidding. My mom is not on. Khalid is here, says hello. Peter Moreland is here. Awesome. What is going on with the display here? This is, let's see. I think one of the things is bad. Let's see. Which one is bad for most social? Huh. Yeah, this guy. Oh boy, for most social. That is not working. Okay, I'll turn that off. Perfect. Now you shouldn't have that banner flying across. Let's see who else is on. Steve Ross is on. So are the other few folks. Seems to be just lurking, which is okay. If you get a chance, say hello in the chat box. I love talking to you guys. So today's episode, we're going to do the top hits. And here's what happened. Oh gosh, the banner should go away soon, hopefully. I messed something up in the display. I'll keep an eye on that. But Raphael says hello. Hello, Raphael. Welcome. So last week, was it last week? Seems like ages ago. Gosh. So we ran a 5-day Power BI challenge, and the challenge was all about building your very first or next Power BI dashboard. That was the goal. And a lot of you participated. That was awesome. And day 5 was a very ambitious, epic finish where the goal was to do an all-day Talk Power BI marathon. And it mostly worked out. I certainly really got a kick out of it. And this was kind of one-on-one calls. And let me just show you what the day looked like. So we were keeping notes in this document, and you can see that the day was mostly booked out, but we did struggle to kind of fill some last-minute cancellation and gaps. And of course, I took a lot of notes, so I got a chance to talk to a lot of you. But so there was a lot of goodness in that 7.5 hours live. But I knew that it's going to be hard for people to kind of trudge through that to find the nuggets. So I picked out some of my favorite moments on there, and I'm going to kick off today's session by talking about that, if that's okay with you guys. So the first one was one from my students, Bill McNair, and we just stepped through in debugging a DAX measure. And it was actually a good thing that I stumbled for a bit. I stumbled and kind of recovered myself. And I've seen my students see me do that all the time in the group calls, and that's okay. I want you to realize that the so-called, the experts, they also take some time sometimes to figure things out, and that's okay. In fact, one of my friends, who shall remain unnamed, is an expert. He's pretty amazing, but he talked about how he finds a question on the forum, and he takes like 2 days to figure it out. But once he's figured it out, he goes back on there and just kind of nonchalantly, like, yeah, here's how you do it. It makes it seem easy. So sometimes we do that, but it's okay to see us stumble. The next one was by Dursu Pavan, and this was really interesting. This was debugging a relationship issue, and it had me almost pulling my hair out for a second, like, what's going on? Why is it not working? But we did manage to solve it, and you're going to see the approach that I took. And interestingly, the approach that I took for for this one was the same, similar to what I took for this one. So there's kind of a lesson there. The next one was interesting. This was automatic cost allocation. So this was, let's say our costs are, let's say for salary or marketing or something, they're not allocated at the transaction level. We do want to allocate it out, not at the transaction level. Maybe we do, and that may be possible too, but maybe at a subcategory level. So we can kind of, I don't know, send a bill to each department, kind of internal cross charge or something else like that. So that was an interesting scenario, and I'm sure that applies to a lot of folks out there. And we'll see that. Shout outs to Ron Burris. Hello there. Tamir is here. He's one of the members of the Learn Power BI family, which is growing fast. A quick shout out actually to, let's do a quick shout out to the new members who joined. How about that? Let me pull them up. So I shared a map with you guys. You've probably seen it, but I did this around in November, October, something like that. So we had 100 plus students across 18 different countries. I put it on a map, and I love looking at that, I have to say. So enrollment is open right now, and welcome to all of the new students. So let's see. We have the new students who joined: Eric, Nathan Coburn, Kathy is here, Kim Chornhead, Nimesh, Sean, Munir, Megan, would they say? I'm probably not saying it right. Joshua, Gerv, Fernando, Carl, who has been hanging out with us on our YouTube channel, Laura, Jim, Alice, and Dennis. Oh, there's more. Gerv. Did I say that already? So yeah, that's pretty exciting. I'm glad to see kind of the Learn Power BI family grow over there. But let's get into this. So let's do the first one. Oh, there's bonus. So this bonus comes out of our call yesterday with our students, where we were challenged with incremental refresh. And this was a group effort. There was a lot of good discussion on our internal student group. I took some out of that. We had some discussion on the class. So if we have time and if there is interest, we will cover that. Karan says hi. Hello there. Kevin is here from Costa Rica. Woohoo! So let's do the first one. So this is what Bill sent me. And guys, if you don't know Bill, so he's in my class, but he has taken a kind of a scalpel to DAX. And of course, he's gone through the course, but he has gone farther. And, so this is the kind of files he sent me. So you can see very detail oriented. And so if you need help with DAX, look him up on LinkedIn. So yeah, you can see kind of what he's doing. He's just going, let's see if that zooms in, kind of step by step and figuring out how each piece works, which is good. But of course, I warn you not to just go out and do that by yourself, because kind of one of those warnings. Don't try this at home, because you do need some context as well. So he's of course has so I think you only learn that way if you do have some fundamentals. So I just helped him kind of where he was stuck. So I'll show you the challenge that he was facing. So let's say we go over here, and I can't find his formula, so I'm just going to define a new one. And let's go back to here and find Bill from our Talk Power BI Marathon, and I think we had this measure. So this is the measure that he sent me, and the first thing that I did was stuck that in DAX formatter. If you're not familiar with that tool, well, you should be. And this is what it does. You stick that in, and it just formats it really nice, and lets you see it quite easily, right? I mean, it just, it's color coded and all that. It makes sense. So I'm going to copy that and go in here. And I'm going to do a new. Gilmore just joined us. Hello from Brazil. And Evelina says hi from Poland. Awesome. Okay, let's do a new table. And again, if you're not familiar with the trick of using a table to combine stories to story measures, hold on, let me get the door. All right, let's say, what am I doing? So, formulas. Avi formulas, how about that? So again, the DAX formatter makes a somewhat scary looking formula a little less scary. Let's go here. Let's do a new measure. And we have this category. So we'll say count category with sales. Okay, let's see how this formula is behaving. And thanks to somebody on Talk Power BI, I forget the name, but we figured out. I mean, it was staring in our faces, but I just had never paid attention. So on our Face Talk Power BI group, somebody asked that how do you set a default font size? Because that always bugs me. And where did that comment go? But anyway, you can do that using custom theme, which I haven't done yet, but it's possible. So hey guys, give me just 1 second. I'm gonna do some let's see, remote social. All right, I'm gonna keep an eye on that, see how that's working. Oops. All right, so back here. Come on. Okay, good enough. So we have count of category with sales. I'm not even going to explain the formula now because we're going to simplify it. I'll just show you the behavior. So we're going to make this a table, and this is where default font sizes would help me once I set it up. And values, and we'll say 16. How about that? And we're going to say by calendar, year. Did that work? No. Okay. And so we have overall categories. Let's look at that. So if we go category, where is my category? That's in product. And category, I'm going to make this a matrix. And let's do sales. Do we have sales here? Sales. Let me just define one really quick. So in here, I'm going to say sales equals some sales amount. That's it. And if I add that here, and if we add years, maybe over here, category in here. Okay. So you can see here, actually let's do, so values, there are actually 5 categories. Yeah, the blank one doesn't show, but that one is there as well. So if you just do a count of categories, there are 5, but we're trying to count the categories which with sales. So you can see in 2014 there was only 1, bikes. In 2015 there was only 1 as well, and then there were 3. Now what Bill wanted to do was to have a measure which ignores the time filter. So it says, you know, I don't care. I don't care 2014, 15, 16, I don't care about that. Just give me the product category that's sold across all times. And he was like, how do I do this? So this is the first thing that I did. So first of all, I took this and kind of simplified it. And then I got stuck, I think. So let's see. Let's see if I can recreate my path. So we already have sales sum amount. So what we're going to do here is define count category with sales. All right. So we'll say calculate. Actually, let me do a count. Should I do a count category? Yeah, let's do a count category first. So I always build things in small building blocks. So count category is simply distinct count category, product category. And let's see how that one looks. So again, we're trying to get a measure which doesn't respect sales across all time. So count category, of course, has no bearing on sales. It always returns 5. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's do the next one. So we got the count category. That's the first one. Let's do, a new measure, which will say, did that work? Yep, count, nope. Okay, clicked it too many times. Count category with sales. How are we going to do this? So we could say, actually I'm not sure if we needed that measure, because we could say count rows, or maybe we do use it. So calculate, and we have count category where what? Where sales is greater than 0. Now, of course, this is not going to work, and I often let it fail like that. Oh, count category with sales. So notice that it gives me an error that says, hey, true false expression. I don't really read that. The way I interpret true false expression is that I specified a filter for calculate, which is slightly too complex. So calculate filters, and you're gonna, if you're in the course, you'll see those modules. Typically takes a table column equals value filter, and when it's something more complicated, it's measure. Then I pull out the filter, and filter is simply more powerful because filter is actually filter x. It's an x function, which means it's an iterator. So what are we iterating over? We're iterating over category. We want to go category by category. So we need filter. The first expression, as you can see, is a table. So we need a table of categories. Now we don't quite have that. We have product table, where you can always manufacture a table by values. So we'll say values product category. So go through every category and give me only the ones where sales is greater than 0. Now, Bill and I talked about this on the call as well. Now, that means if something has negative sales, so we didn't like sell it, but there were some returns, this would exclude that as well. And you have to make that's a business call, that what do you want? Do you want to include them? Then of course you might have to check something like if sales is blank. So if it's blank, no records, then you count it. Otherwise, don't count it. But in this case, we're saying if sales is greater than 0. So let's just go with that. And let's try that one, category with sales. So, and actually there's another way to write it. So let's stick that here, and we'll see how this behaves. So notice that this is so far behaving same as this, which is not our goal. Our goal is that it should return 3, 3, 3. All time. All time, what are the categories without sales? So it doesn't respect that. But while we're here, I'm going to write this in a slightly different way. So I'm going to actually copy this one. And you're going to see those two maybe side by side. We'll see. So count category with sales, and we'll say V2. And instead of calculate, in here, you can simply say, because filter gives us the rows that we need to count, you can say count rows. And actually, it doesn't matter. I would say do what feels more natural. Sometimes the calculate one feels more natural to me because I'm reusing my measures, using them as building blocks. So V2, and we're gonna stick that in there, and you're gonna see it behaves the same way. So yeah, 113, right? Exact, pretty much just doing the same thing. Okay, now let's really solve a problem, right? So our goal is to not respect the calendar filter coming in. So we can write another version. Okay, hold on, guys. Let me see what's going on in the chat. Staring you. Okay, Khalid has some questions. Show us how to create a table with a function. Okay, I don't do that often. I would love to ask you why you have the need for that. So actually, I'll hold that. I do have thoughts about that. Is it possible to get data from SAP, Oscar, SAP directly? Okay, so I'll definitely get to those questions. In fact, maybe after this one, we'll do a slight break before we go into the next top hit, and we'll take some of the questions. So now let's go to the next one. And did that work? Oops. Okay, and let's do new measure. And we had the measure defined earlier, and it counts all category with sales. But now we can say sales all time, right? And we're gonna start with the one that we just defined, and we're gonna say all calendar. Easy enough, right? So we said we've already defined a measure, and I'm a big proponent of reuse. Building blocks, I build them in small blocks. You saw how small. I mean, usually my first formula is always sum of something, and that's it. And then I reuse that in every other place. I never ever define it again. I never say sum sales amount because I already defined that, so I'm going to reuse that. So in this case, we had a measure which is counting the category with sales. We're just going to say, you know what? Don't respect the calendar filter, right? Just forget about that. Just ignore it. Does this work? Let's see. Woo! All right, so this was the result that Bill was looking for, but then we went further. And then we said, you know what? What if we wanted to not respect the product filters as well? Or even if somebody says, let's see, product. If somebody comes in here and somehow they filter down to bikes, even then we want to show 3. Fair enough? I mean, it could be a scenario where, like, you know what? I just need a number of categories sold across like everything. Don't filter it, right? So then we go in here and we can change that. Oops. All time, all products. Oh, let's try that. All products, and we can just add that, and we can say all calendar, all product. Perfect, right? And now you're gonna notice that it's gonna change to 3 as soon as it's done. Yeah, perfect. I was scared for a minute. So yeah, so now it's not respecting our product filter, which is over here, which is what we're trying to do. But then the question was that what if there are like, oh gosh, so sorry, it's not organized the way I typically do. So ignore this. But it's really a data table, and then there are lookup tables over here. Ignore the rest for now. There we go, right? So focus on this stuff. What if there were 20 lookup tables that we wanted to ignore? I mean, do we write all 20? And what if we had 20 right now, but then at some point another 21st lookup table comes in, and it's going to come in the future. We know about it, and we don't want to respect that filter. How do we do it? How do we write for something that's not even there yet? Well, you can. If you're really looking for, you know what, I don't care about any filters. I just want all territories, all product, all customer, all calendar. Just give me the number of categories sold. Well, you can do that by saying all sales. And that's it. It's not respecting the year, it's not respecting the products. And if you brought in something by customer, I don't know, first name, Aaron, I'm sure Aaron didn't buy 3 things. So it's just gonna remove all those filters. And this is the part that gets fun if you really want to dive into like why it works that way. And for that, I'm going to point you to whom I refer to as the father of DAX, my friends. So Jeffrey Wong, DAX. And yeah, just Google him, just like I did, and or actually I'll stick this in there. So for your, not for beginners for sure, but it's an interesting read. It's an interesting read, and helps you understand what's going on. So the short story is that the sales table is not actually a sales table. It's a combination of all its lookup tables. So if you go back here to the relationship view, the sales table technically under the hood is not just sales, it's kind of territories on the side as well, product on the side as well, and so forth. At least logically. I'm not sure. I don't think it's actually stored that way, but logically it works that way. Whew, okay, that was just number one. How are we doing on time? We're already 30 minutes, so I'm not doing that great on time. I thought we were going to blow through these in 30 minutes, but there's some good stuff on relationship issues, the DAX, the Power BI kind, not the other one, and automatic cost allocation. So Mikhail, how not to respect 20 but only one? Ooh, that's an interesting one. So I can't think of a solution where you can clear filters on 20 lookup tables but keep one. Or actually, maybe I can. Maybe I can. Wow, that's a good one. So what I was thinking about was there's certainly all except, right? So let's write another version. So I know we're going slightly on a tangent, but hey, that's why these live calls are fun. You get to drive it, right? You're the driver, not me. So if you crash, not my fault. Let's go back here and ignore this one for now. And here, which one do I want to keep? With sales, with sales all, category with sales dot, this one, category sales v2, count rows. Okay, let's go back to the all version and let's do a new one. So, oops, not new column, new measure. So if we go new measure, okay, perfect. And here I was thinking all except. So if we had something right, all except. So you can say calendar and then clear all filters on calendar except I don't know which one would be a good demonstration. Let's say year. All except year. I feel like it's not going to make a good demo, but let's just try it. So what this is going to do is going to clear the month filter, but not the year filter. So let's go back to this guy, and put in all except, and we'll bring in month and make that a matrix. How's that? Oops. And if we go here, maybe I should do something simpler. So what if we said sales so instead of count category, I'll say this is sales. And this is going to be currency. So notice here that it it doesn't respect the month filter, right? So that's the only one it's keeping, because we said clear everything except month. So month it respects, right? Does that? Oh wait, sorry, I got that wrong. So all except year. So keep the year filter, but clear every other thing. Any other filter it's not gonna care about. So here it's keeping the year filter. Year is still 2014 at this level, but it's not respecting month. That's why it's giving us the same number. Let's actually put sales on here as well, so we can compare the two, right? So what it's doing is it's clearing this filter and giving us the complete year, but the year filter it does respect. So if you put in anything in there, let's try quarter, it's not going to respect that either, right? So it doesn't care about quarters. It doesn't care about, let's try red. So it doesn't care about quarter, month, or if you put weekday, weekend, doesn't care about any of that, because we just said clear everything, just keep year. It does keep year, right? So it keeps year. That's why it shows you 7 million, not 29 million, which is the total across all years, as you can see here. So that's one option. But what the question? Who asked the question? Mikhail asked that question. That's a good one. But so what if we have? Well, we don't have 20 tables. But let's pretend we wanna clear filters on everything, just all in one stroke. But wanna keep the product one. Ready? Oh, this is a good one. I'm liking it, man. This is like the top hit from the top hits. How about that? We'll see. So we want that one. Okay. Let's do this. I'm gonna bring back our friend. Now that we've seen all except, so we want to keep the product. Let's say product. So we'll go with sales with all. So this is what we had ended up with. Count category with sales all. We're gonna do a new measure. And we'll say count category with sales all except product. Hopefully now it's not confusing. So like clear every damn filter, but keep product. We want to keep product. Now we know that all sales does clear every single thing. Just, it's kind of like the nuclear option, right? It just always gives you the, if you do all sales and you calculate sales, maybe we shouldn't have done it with category. We should have done it with the dollars. That would have been easier to see, because that would always show you 29 million. Should we do that? Maybe. So sales all except product. So, and again, you see how easy it is when you use Lego blocks. Then I don't want to count. I want the sales. I can just put that in. So calculate sales all sales, but I want to keep the product filter. So there are 20 tables and I've cleared all of them. And how do I keep the product filter? Well, you can bring back the filter that was in place using values. So values is one of those versatile functions, right? And really quickly, kind of technically, what it does is it returns the values in the current filter context as a table, and of course calculate takes that as a filter and applies it or reapplies that, so it brings back the filter. So in here I will say values product. Can I say that? I think I can. Yeah, so let's say values product, and that's it. So the idea here is that so the calculate total sales is 29 million. You've seen that, right? So that is total sales right here, 29 million. And let's do another one. Sales all except product. So it respects the product filter, but doesn't care about any other filter out there. So this is 29, same thing, right? But notice that if we do customer, so this obviously filters down. This one doesn't respect it. So it doesn't respect customer. Or what if we filter on year? So if we do year slicer right here, 2016, doesn't respect that, right? It's not budging. It's not shifting. It's like, no, I'm going to clear all damn filters. But it is going to respect, where did it go? This one. It is going to respect, oh gosh, come on, product filters, right? So anything you put in product, it is going to respect because we put the values in there. Let's try that, shall we? So right now it's not budging 29.31, and I'm going to click on accessories. Okay, good. The delay is like, oh, is it gonna work? So yeah, so it keeps the product filter, and any product filter you would bring in, it would respect. And of course, you can say only respect product category, right, or something like that. So let's bring in color. So if you bring in color, and I click on red, it does filter down. So now it's showing me accessories and red. But if you wanted, so again, man, DAX is like a magic wand, right? So in here, if you wanted to say, oops, if you wanted to say, no, only, I only want the category one to be retained. That's it, nothing else. So now if we do that, then product category, yeah, it went back to 667. So it went back to accessories. Now my color filter is not gonna work. It's gonna not respect that. Okay, so this was, I know, a little bit of an academic example. That's why I'm not a huge fan of AdventureWorks, and that's why I love working with real data sets, which is what we have. Shoot, automatic cost allocation is also AdventureWorks, but that's a real example. Maybe we do that before we hit Dersu. So let me quickly do questions. Woo-doo-doo. Okay, boys, so that was a long list. Let me just copy that in. Let's go over here. Let's do a new one. All right, let's start with the one. Khalid, what is the difference when you calculate all, calculate, filter all? Sorry, it's gonna be hard to kind of explain it here. I would say go through the zero to dashboard tutorial, or if you're in my class, of course, I go through that step by step. I don't know if I were to say it. Calculate is really a magic wand. Calculate is a function that lets you alter the filter context by specifying different parameters, right? So parameters can be either table column equals value, customer gender equals F, or it can be a table, which you can get from all values and other stuff, right? So that's what calculate does. It lets you alter the filter context. All clears filters calculate, well, I mean, that's, yeah, I mean, that those two can work together. They can work in any combination. Filter is an X function, kind of like sum X, min X, max X. It really should have been named filter X. So yeah, so there's, of course, I'll go into a lot more depth inside my course. There is good content on my YouTube channel. I would recommend the Zero to Dashboard tutorial. That does introduce a few of these and kind of gets you started about the idea of measures. The idea of measures in DAX is probably the most challenging. It's one of those funny things where it's easy to get started. Like when you write the sum function, it's easy, like sum is easy. But as soon as you're trying to do something a little more complicated, you kind of get stuck. So if you are not my student, then start on my YouTube channel, Zero to Dashboard. Otherwise, in the tutorial, you would find it starts with Zero to Dashboard, which is the same as what you have on YouTube, but then it dives into each one, specifically relationships and DAX. Where did that go? We talked about this one. Anyone able to connect directly SAP? So interestingly, there have been a lot of questions about connections. Inside the course as well. Is off premise? Yeah, I wouldn't know the answer to that. So actually, yesterday there was this discussion about SAP between Dan and one other individual, and they did have some war stories about that. Actually, you know what? Let me just pull up the notes for tomorrow, for yesterday, not tomorrow. It would be pretty amazing if I pulled up the notes for tomorrow. So that was our live calls, and I was trying to write down notes. So what did Dan say? That was December 7th. That was yesterday. So it seemed like sometimes there are third-party tools in Excel they're using. Sometimes it seems like a SQL backend. I'm sorry. I mean, so in our class, typically for stuff that I haven't dealt with directly, I just students obviously they connect directly with the others who have done that. So if you're in my class, then kind of post there. If you're not, you can try the same in the Talk Power BI group. Folks have been really helpful there as well. So that's I'm pretty sure it's possible. Were there some other questions earlier? I'm aggregating I'm aggregating many files. I need to create a unique list of employees and sales on the fly, so it'll always be up to date. Yeah. So to me, that should be pretty straightforward. I would bring them in like from a folder or something, and then just remove duplicates. So that's a good approach. Oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry, I missed the question. Does referencing tables in Query Editor affect performance? Not really. I mean, referencing itself doesn't kill it, but I do it all the time. It's what you might do all the other steps. So from your question, I can guess that it seems like you did see kind of performance change, but it's not because of reference. It's because what's going on in there. Okay, so if you had any other questions, just type in again. Oh, so Khalid is saying my questions was about the combinations calculate all, calculate, filter all in terms of performance. Oh, okay. Well, performance is a tricky business. So for one, in general, if you can use calculate and specify a simple filter. A simple filter is table column equals value. That one is straightforward and that should perform well. If you use filter, it may perform the same. Maybe you wouldn't see any difference at all. But it's possible. So filter is very powerful because it's an X function, and it's possible that you write such a filter clause that things really slow down. Then yeah, that's a possibility. So any of those in itself is not guilty. It's not like it's gonna reduce performance. So performance in general, my rule is if it's not broken, don't fix it. I mean, of course, follow best practices. Don't write like weird formulas. Follow best practices, but yeah, if it's working fine, don't fix it. But if it's not working fine, then yeah, there are ways and approach that I use to see exactly where the bottleneck is, what's going on. Try to write different variations and see if it works faster. Okay, let's do the third one first, because that one is pretty exciting, which is automatic cost calculations by Oscar. So here the idea, let me see if I can pull up here in the Talk Power BI. Where was this? So this was Oscar who asked that question. So he was pulling in some data, and the sales data was at the transaction level. Great. But then he had like what seemed like, I don't know, bank interest or something like that, service professionals. Well, you can imagine, like, right, salary, which was not at the transaction level, and he needed to kind of allocate it down, not to the transaction level, although you could in Query Editor, potentially you could, but let's say just at a product category or subcategory level. And let's say for our example, we're trying to allocate costs back to that unit. So we'll say, hey, overall we spent 100,000 in marketing, but bikes, your sales were 70,000, 70% of our overall sales. So you get 70% of that cost, right? So something like that. I mean, of course, somebody can argue whether that's fair or not, but that's the assumption we're going with. So let's go to Oscar. So this is all a query editor. So again, I think this one has a solution, has kind of a DAX solution as well. So usually I think of the query editor as a clean shape transform engine. That's my kitchen. That's where I do my cooking, right? So all the data shaping and all that stuff, it happens there. And then in my model, that's where I do all my calculations. So if I find myself doing kind of numbers, math, summing up things, God forbid, doing year-over-year comparison, that's a no-no, right? That shouldn't be happening here. That should be happening on the DAX side. But so here, this one was kind of borderline. I mean, is this shaping or is this calculation? So I solved it using Query Editor. I know that there can be a DAX solution for this as well. Maybe I'll try it one day, or I'll definitely encourage you guys to try it. But for now, we have, and in this case, I have budget, but pretend that's expense, or maybe we'll rename it. So we'll say, we'll just, let's say this is expense. So we have expense amount, and we just have the total amount that we spent for that month. And it doesn't have to be a total for the month. This could have categories. So let's say, I think I have a sample Excel file here. So we started off with this, but we might as well have, we could have had something which is further broken down. So it's not like for the month, but it's salary, advertising, contractors. Doesn't matter. That really doesn't matter in our case. That would still handle it. So how can we allocate it out to the categories in our case, product category, right? So we're gonna start with our sales table, and I'm gonna reference that. Yep. And I'll say sales, I don't know, percentage allocation, something like that. So we start with sales, and the sales table right now doesn't have product category. It only has product key, which is okay. You don't want that in the sales table. But in our allocation table, we do want to bring that in. So for that, I'm going to say merge queries. So make sure audio is good. Okay, perfect. I'm just going to do a quick check on how my settings are. Perfect. Okay, I think things are good. Okay, so we are gonna go to the product table, and we're gonna grab product key. Perfect, that's a match. And once that comes in, I'm gonna expand product and grab the category. I don't need this. Hit OK. Perfect. So we have that. And now at this point, I can go to transform and say group by category. And I don't want to count. I want the sum of sales. Perfect. Hit OK. If you're curious, there are some pretty cool advanced options as well. Okay, it's gonna take a bit of a second. So here we are grouping by category across all time. But if we wanted to, we could do it by category and by year or by month. Because let's say bikes were 70% last year, but this year they're only 30% of the sales. They would really hate it if we kind of averaged the whole thing and said, hey, overall you were at, I don't know, 60%, and give them 60% of the cost this year as well. They'll say, no, this year we're just 30%. So you can be as granular or not as you want. And I'm waiting for this. Let's see if you have any questions. Awesome. Come on, my friend. Okay, it shouldn't take this long, but we'll wait for it. Or maybe I can open up the solved one. Let me see if I can find that. Here. Oh, there we go. It came back. Okay, so we got a sales amount. Perfect. And we also need like total sales amount, right? So we can calculate this as a percentage. So let's say, how do we calculate total of this? So I can do another group by, and here I can go to advanced and I can remove this grouping, and I just say, just give me the sum of everything. And let's see, total sales amount. Hopefully that one doesn't take forever. Oh well, maybe it will. Okay, time to pull out the solved one maybe. There we go. Let's see Oscar. Okay, we're just gonna have to wait for it. Sorry, guys. Yeah, put in your question if you have any. I swear something's going on with my computer because this wasn't this slow when we tried it on the live call. Let me go back. Oh, well, while that's coming on, well, there we go. Whew. Okay, so we got the total sales amount, and now I can just say group rows, and I'll rename this total sales amount, and then I'm gonna just say total sales amount, but I need the actual value. So for that, I'm just gonna reference into that, and so this is gonna, right now it's a table, but this is gonna give me a scalar value. So this got me a scalar value, perfect. And now I'm gonna carry on from where I had left off. So, right, so our group rows were here. Now I figured out the total sales amount, but then I can continue table. So I'm just doing a reference to that. So essentially, these two steps were kind of a detour. Total sales amount and this one were a detour. So actually, let me change this one. Total sales amount table, and this one, let's make it total sales amount. So these two steps were a detour, and now we're back where we were. Okay, got it. So grouped rows, and always make sure there are no errors, and let's see if it still works. So perfect. So we're at the continue table, and now I'm going to add a column, custom column, and bring in that total sales amount. That's it. I'm referring to that. Oops. Each total sales amount. What if we say like that? Nope. Why isn't it working? Total sales amount is this. Is it the name? Boy, I swear this was working. Why isn't it working? Oh, something happened here. Oh, I messed up some formula. Oh, sorry guys. That's the fun of mucking around in the advanced editor. So once it comes back, we should have the sales for the category and the total sales, and then it's simply just divided by that. So I think there was some discussion on Talk Power BI. Of course, Tamir was asking about that, and there was some discussion in the Talk Power BI Facebook group as well about refresh times. And I think Shabi maybe was struggling with that. And in general, as you can see, so I think this data source is connected to Excel, and it doesn't have that many rows, but it's slow. You can see for some of these operations. Now, I kind of have two answers to that. I mean, usually first thing when I hear about the refresh being slow is that why do you care? because the refresh should be set up automatically, which is what we had. It was a nightly refresh, and pretty much any scenario you're in, whether you're using Power BI Desktop, you're using Excel Power Pivot, you're using PowerBI.com, there are ways to set up automatic refresh, and that's what we've always had. So we would run it overnight, and yeah, it didn't matter. It could take 8 hours. It didn't. I mean, in our case, it would take like 20 minutes, sometimes a couple of hours, but we didn't really care. So that's kind of my first response. Like, why do you care? Set it up to auto refresh. But I do realize that sometimes it makes authoring the model challenging. As you saw right here, it seems like every time I do something, it's almost a mini coffee break. And so in those scenarios, and this is usually somebody who's kind of pushing the edge. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we would go on for a long time in Query Editor and still be able to make it work. In those rare scenarios, we did fall back onto SQL. And of course, if I had a SQL backend here, the Query Editor is really, really smart. Instead of doing the operations here on the desktop, if you're doing group by, if you're doing filtering, it sends back the SQL query to the SQL Server, because SQL Server, of course, those are built to crunch queries and go through a million rows and filter it down. So it doesn't do that on the desktop. So right away, I would see a benefit if the backend was SQL, but it's not right now. But notice here, we're kind of ready, and we'll just do A divided by B. What are we doing? So we'll just say add column, custom column. What up, Barth? What? How come you were watching me on YouTube? No school today? Oh, school ended early. Okay.
Wait, how long's the thing gonna be?
Well, there's no end time for this. Yeah, my son is here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know when we start.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a start time to the party. There's no end time for the party, buddy. Yeah.
Can you take me to the turf later?
What time?
I don't know, like 2 maybe?
Sure.
Okay.
Allocation percentage. Oops. And we will just say, give me what the sales were divided by the total sales amount. And again, you could do this at a year level, at a month level. You could do this at a more granular level. Instead of category, you could do it at a subcategory or whatever. You could even do it at a SKU level or something like that, something crazy like that. So once we have that percentage value, then we're going to go back and apply it to our expense table, and that will just kind of portion it all out. And the best part is that I like in Power Query is that you don't have Query Editor in Power BI is like this one is an interim table, so I can right click and disable load on this when it comes back. I don't have to load it back. Okay, call it what is the difference between reference query and duplicate query in Query Editor? That's a good one. Let me see if I have another instance of Power BI open where I can kind of quickly show that. I do. Okay, great. So let's, while that one is running, hopefully those two don't interfere. So duplicate makes a copy. Reference is kind of like a pointer. So typically when I need to continue on, I use a reference unless there is a risk of a cyclical reference, and I'll talk about that. I guess that's not going to come up for me, is it? Oh yeah, it's still running. Oscar, in this example, costs were provided by accounting software. Expenses were allocated by category percentage of sales. Can you give us sample data? What group by we use like a pivot table consolidates this amount and gets sales percentage by categories. So Oscar, if you're still struggling with that, if the solution didn't help you, then I don't know. Yeah, let's see if we can find out a way to sort it out. I'll say definitely post, if you're still struggling with your problem, post it with the sample data inside the Talk Power BI group. And if I won't pick it up, then I know somebody else will, and we'll get you sorted out. But really, I mean, as you see, the approach is kind of easy. Frankly, so the most challenging problem that I've encountered, it took me a month to solve, and man, it was a hairy one. It was a hairy one. So this one is pretty straightforward. So we have the allocation percentages, and of course this is glorious AdventureWorks data. So it's 2%, 96% bikes are taking up. Let's just do add column. So now we're gonna merge it back to the expense, and for that I'm sure there's a smarter way to do it, but I just do it using a dummy column. Let's see how. Oh gosh, it's going to take forever for every action. Now I know there's a way to cache the results. Let's see if that would help us. Power query cache. Okay, so I'll maybe try to figure that out on a break or something. Because I think it's rerunning the whole thing every time. And I've done this trick in the past where you can say kind of cache the results. Anyway, gosh, I didn't realize this was gonna be this slow. Let's see if I can help it in any way. Oh, that's still running. Okay, while that's running, let's see if this guy is gonna cooperate. The easiest way, so let's see who asked a question about reference and duplicate. Call it reference and duplicate. Yep. So the easiest way to see this is if you go in the query editor and look at the query dependencies. And let's see what it looks like for now. And what I'm going to do is, so notice that employee and employee 2 are connected. I'm sure there's a reference there. So what I had done was and let's do that again. So if we go employee and I say right click and I say reference, a few things happen. First of all, so this, let's call it employee 3. That when you do a reference, you would only see a single step, right? A single step. And if you click on that, and you should always have the formula bar turned on, it'll look really, really simple. The step will just say blah, right? I mean, it'll just say the name of the query that you referenced. That's it. So it's kind of a link to that. And now let's do copy. So notice the employee table. Now this one has 2 steps, but it's possible that it had 20. All right, let's pretend that it has 20 steps. And you go right click and then you say duplicate. And now let's call it employee copy or duplicate. If you had 20 steps in there, this would have those 20 steps. So it's an exact copy, it's a replica, and these are not connected in any way. So let's go back to our query dependencies view. And you can see that the first one that we created as a reference, this guy has an arrow. So it's connected to that. So any change we make here are automatically going to be reflected here. So we do some cleanup over here, some column rename and all that stuff, it's going to be reflected over here. So typically reference is the better solution because one, it doesn't kind of copy if you have 20 steps. And I mean, imagine if you had 20 steps and you made a copy of that duplicate, then if you had a fix, you realize there was a bug in one of the steps. If you fix it here, you're going to have to fix it here. So typically reference is the way to go. But in some cases, you can end up with a cyclical reference, which is sometimes I want to take the employee table, do some calculations, and then feed it back into the employee table. And it's not going to fly. It's not going to work. It's not going to let you do that, right? And in that case, I just make a copy and just kind of live with that. So that's that. Let's check in on our friend. How's it doing? Okay, dummy one go. Okay, good. So we go to expense, and we go. It should go fast from here. Dummy one. So we got our expenses. Boo boo boo. And we are gonna do our merge with the allocation. So right now it's just at a month level. We're gonna just kind of split it out by category. So we're gonna join by sales allocation by the dummy column, and so I got that, and then I'm gonna break it out and grab the allocation percentage from there. Okay, well, once it comes through, it is going to split this row into 3 rows. for the 3 categories that I have. And of course, it's all automatic. You don't have to touch it once you set it up. It just is going to work automatically. Okay, Oscar did get everything to work. Awesome. Colleagues asking, is reference query not increasing the PBIX file size? So nothing in the query editor is going to increase the PBIX file size unless you load it back. So the PBIX, the model as it's stored, so there are 2 parts to it: the clean shape transform and the model, which is kind of this guy, right? So this model is what gets stored. What gets stored from your query is simply the query definition, which is, if you go in the advanced editor, this is the text that gets stored. So even if you have 100 queries with 100 steps each, I don't know, that's going to be like a kilobyte. So the queries do not add anything to it. You can do anything you want. The only thing that adds to it is what gets loaded over here. And this is an important lesson, this part, this hand, the right hand, doesn't know what the left hand is doing. So this model here, which pulls the data or manifests the data and stores it back, doesn't know what you're doing inside the query editor. It doesn't know, it doesn't have any clue, it doesn't care, right? So how you do it, it doesn't matter, it doesn't care. Ultimately, it's up to you that whatever you generate using duplicate or reference or any other means, first of all, do you choose to load it or not? Sometimes my queries are building blocks. I build my measures and my queries the exact same way in building blocks. I build small things and combine them to create more complicated things. And the small ones, I only need the end result. I don't need the components. So I uncheck this box. So I uncheck this box and it doesn't get loaded. And you know what? The model is not even going to know, right? So it doesn't know about reference, duplicate. It just cares about what you eventually load. And again, the good part about this is that you can throw away the interim stuff. So let's see, our allocation percentage came out, and you notice how the 871119 got split into 3 rows. But of course, we're not done yet, so we're just going to multiply this with this, and we're going to get our expense allocated. And my favorite part, once we're done, we can delete these columns. And again, because we delete these columns, they're not going to be stored back in the PBIX file because they're not needed. I mean, we need the allocated amount. So last step here, allocation. Okay, so Oscar, I realized, was trying to help me since I was struggling with this thing. But sorry, I just hopefully it worked. All right, so allocated expense, we do that. And for here, we'll just say whatever the expense amount was. But oh shoot, I should have gotten category as well. I didn't realize that, but I'll get that in. Allocation percentage, and hit OK, and we'll let that do its thing. But if we go back and expand it, oops, I needed to bring in category as well. So I'll kind of let it run, but that's, oh wow, that was quick. So here we got expense amount, ignore the dummy one. So 87119 was split across accessories, bikes, and clothing, and it had the allocation percentage, and it had the allocated expense. And since this adds up to 100%, all of these would match up with 87119. So it's just kind of split up. And of course, you can get rid of all of your interim columns and just remove them. And you have this final table, which has by each category allocated expense. And again, you can do a different allocation percentage by year, by month. You don't have to do it by category. You can do it by subcategory and so forth. So boy, that went longer than I expected. I don't know why I thought that would finish in 30 minutes. But so we're going to skip the other stuff we were planning to cover. There was a lot of good stuff, and maybe I'll just create separate videos for that. This is not this one. Where is Talk Power BI? So I'll just record that as a separate video and release it there. Let's see if there are any more questions. Just type them in. If you typed something earlier and I didn't get to it, now would be a good time. Or if you have something new, just ask it now before I head off to drop my son off to turf field. But yeah, you're not. Feel free to ask. What else is going on? So yeah, for those who attended my webinar, you guys did get to learn about my learnpowerbi.com program. The enrollment is open right now. So if you attend the webinar, you have all the information on that. and I would love to see you there. Let me bring up the Learn Power BI family. I never get tired of seeing that. So let's see, where is that class progress? So it hasn't been updated for the new students. So Khalid earlier had a comment saying it's related to folding. That's right. That's the word for when query editor pushes up some logic up to the source. So it can push it up to SQL Server, and it's pretty cool to see. Errol is asking a question for you to answer later on. Is it possible to replace a reports data set with another data set? Oh, yeah, I can answer that right now. In fact, that came up in our class. So two things there. Well, first thing is, if you're replacing a data set, is that a fundamentally different structure? And I'll go with the assumption that it's not, right? Let's go with that assumption that it's the same structure, but coming from a different place. And again, if that is a scenario, that happens a lot of times where and the biggest change is that we were using an Access database, but now we have moved to a SQL Server. Or we were using, this was coming in a file, but now I got access directly to the database and I would just want to switch to that. And how do you do it? And the challenge that at least my students were facing was that if you go in here and you get a new source and now it's coming from a SQL Server, so you go over to SQL Server and let's just walk through and do a little bit here. So we'd say dot and hit OK, and I'm going to pull in product, let's say. So local SQL database, P3 product, right? So they would pull in this new table, and let's assume that it is exactly the same structure as my product table. But at this point, what they would do is they would delete this one. I'm not going to delete it because then I can't get it back. So old product, which was connected to Excel or something like that, and they would come back to the new one and rename it to product, right? And then they would load it, but of course it would just blow everything away. And especially measures, I love my measures. I end up with like 50, 100 plus, even a simple model. So it blows it away. So how do you substitute something kind of totally different with the same structure in the same query? And the answer is really easy. You connect to the new one, and then you just go to, not properties, but you go to Advanced Editor, and this one is connected to SQL. And as long as it has the same structure, I just copy this thing, go to my original product table, click on the Advanced Editor, and notice this was connected to Access, but I can just put the new query in, and boom, hit OK, and that's it. And I've kind of swapped in my data set without impacting anything. I mean, and again, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So the query editor, what goes on in the query editor, the Power BI model doesn't quite know. So if you switch the same query and just switch the internals inside it, switch the kind of the syntax, then it's going to be not going to know. But if you delete this one and you create a new one, it does figure that out. So oh, it's not the same product, and then it kind of blows things away. So hopefully that was a question. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get the context on a live call. So yeah, so Oscar has a comment. If you're like me, then you can do some things in Excel and some things in Power Query and mix and match. Yeah, I mean, transition is a hard part, and that's a reasonable approach. Yeah, as long as you keep making progress, that's all that matters. Kind of forward progress, kind of take it step by step. I usually encourage my students to take on something new, something which hadn't been done yet, and solve that in Power BI, and pick something which would have been really hard in the old world, and maybe that's why nobody tackled it, but it's really easy in the new world. That's some of my favorite examples. And the challenge so I talked about this in one of the videos, I think, where this is basically how to select your project, right? So I talk about if you go with an existing project, the challenge becomes that sometimes you're not really doing anything new. You're like, yep, I was doing it in Excel. Sure, I was working a little harder, but here it is in Power BI, and sometimes the benefit doesn't seem as apparent. But that's a good point. All right, my friends, I don't see any more questions, so we'll call it a day. And again, if you were part of the webinar, if you got to know about my course, then I'll encourage you to sign in. On the enrollment page, there's a ton of options to kind of reach out to me. I think you can message me on Messenger. You can book a call with me. You can email me, of course, and maybe there are other ways too. I don't remember. So any of that, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll do this again. We'll do the challenge as well. Sometime we'll gear up, because this was a lot of you got involved. So thanks for that. So we're going to run the challenge again. A lot of you, thank you to those who've already signed up for the course. And I would love to kind of see you there. All right, my friends, take care. Power on.